Sean, Kevin, and Charlie, if I can ask you guys to turn your camera on and go off mute. Thank you. We're going to wait just one more minute before we get started here. We still have a few folks trickling in. Okay, we are at 11:25 Eastern Standard Time, so we are going to get started. Thank you so much to everyone for joining the first of the Drupal Cloud track sessions here at Engage. If you've been with us for the past hour and a half, you had a chance to hear the amazing keynote by our CEO, Mike Sullivan, our CMO, Lynn Capozzi, and our founder, Dries. And this is the first of many Drupal Cloud sessions that will take place over the next 2 days. We have an amazing lineup of speakers and content. You're going to hear from brands like this morning, Leidos. You're going to hear from AMD. You're going to hear from Red Hat. You're going to hear from Charles Schwab, from Pac-12 Networks, and many, many more. So we hope that you will take the time to review the agenda and all of the different track sessions for Drupal Cloud. You can find that by going to the main lobby and searching through the track sessions. You can also go to engage.acquia.com/sessions. The title of our first session is Enterprise Content Management Has Evolved. Why has enterprise content management evolved? Because the world has changed over the course of the last 10 months. For most organizations, even 2 years and 3 years ago, they were starting to see the transition from the buyer journey being kind of split between in-person and online to the buyer journey moving almost entirely online. And so those conversations, that content within those conversations that was taking place in person, now all needs to move online. So most organizations that we're working with today are seeing about 80% of the engagement with a customer take place online and 20% in person. And so what that means is with the volume of content that's shifting to online, that it can no longer be an IT task. It can no longer be a task that's focused on and driven by one part of an organization. And so throughout the Drupal Cloud track sessions, you will see that there is something for everyone who plays a role in creating great content experiences for your customers. Whether you're a developer, you're a marketer, you're a line of business owner, you're an IT professional, you're an information security professional, there is something for you in the Drupal Cloud track sessions. And we at Acquia have recognized that those different parts of an organization need to work together cohesively in order to be effective to deliver great content experiences. And I'm joined today for our first session by an esteemed group of colleagues and customers who are going to help us and the folks on the line understand what the evolution of content management looks like, how organizations need to adopt and change this new to be ready and prepared for this new world, and how to succeed. So with that, I have 3 folks on the line with me today. The first is Sean, who is the Director of Digital at Leidos. And I'm going to let Sean introduce himself here in a moment. I have Kevin Cochran, who's our SVP of Product Marketing, and Charlie Dublin, who is our fearless leader when it comes to building great products within the Drupal Cloud. So Sean, if you want to kick us off and just share a little bit about your background and your experience and the work that you've done in digital to date, as well as some of the details in terms of your role and the scope of what you're responsible for at Leidos. And then I'll pass it over to Kevin for a quick intro, and then Charlie to round us out.
Sounds good, and appreciate you having me here today, Ryan. So Sean McDougall, I'm responsible for all the digital platforms at Leidos, and recently we combined our market and digital team into one function, clearly because our digital output is critical to all of our marketing as we go forward, particularly in this sort of changing environment. So hence my spot here today.
Thanks, Sean. Kevin, to you.
Great. I'm Kevin Cochran, and I've been in the digital experience space for a little bit more than 20 years. Here at Acquia, I'm responsible for product marketing, and someone who is very eager to listen to, learn from, and share the story of all of our customers worldwide as we help them make this pivot to digital.
Thanks, Kevin. And Charlie?
Hi, my name is Charlie Dublin. I'm VP of Product Management. Thank you for being our customers and look forward to today's discussion.
Thanks, Charlie. And I'm Ryan Pacchini. You're going to see me throughout the Drupal Cloud track sessions. I am the Director of Product Marketing for Drupal Cloud. I have been at Acquia for a long time, both in the field and the corporate office. So I'm really excited to be with everyone on the line, our customers, our partners, analysts, and prospective customers who are joining us from all over the globe. I think before we get into our agenda, one of the things I've asked Kevin to just cover off on is a quick overview and history of content management and how we got to where we are today. Kevin, for those of you who don't know him, has been a pioneer in content management for the last 20 plus years, from the early days of content management to where we are today. So Kevin, if you don't mind taking us through just a minute or two summary of the history of content management, and then we'll dive into the agenda, that would be great.
Sure, thank you so much, Ryan. And I think it's actually a perfect introduction to the talk that we're going to hear from Sean today, Leidos. So just take you a little bit through an arc of history. There's really kind of three successive epochs of content management. Between 1998 and 2008, we really saw kind of the dawn of the first generation of content management systems. This was really a CIO-led revolution, really focused on enterprise scale and governance to support corporate communications in their efforts to get on the web and do basic brand marketing. We saw a fundamental shift with the financial crisis, however, and we entered in a second epoch of content management. And this was much more of a CMO-led revolution. It wasn't just about scale and governance. It was really about velocity because marketers, specifically digital marketers, they started needing to drive demand. And we've been living in this wave, this first generation of marketing clouds, for example, for the better part of 10 years. But now here in 2020, just like in the financial crisis way back in 2008, 2009, we have another massive tectonic shift in kind of the consumer landscape, and that is COVID. And we're now entering a third epoch of content management. It's no longer about brand marketing for corporate communications. It's no longer about demand marketing for digital marketing. It's about customer marketing. It's about building trusted relationships with our customers now that it's 100% online and learning how to engage them as individuals in a one-to-one way through all of our digital interactions now that we can't physically meet with them anymore. And in this day and age, it's not just the scale and the governance and the velocity, but now we need to have the intelligence, to have the empathy to really understand what people need during these challenging times. And with all that data that we're now collecting, we need to be able to make certain that there's trust in the relationship because the relationship is secure. We're collecting this data and we're using it for purposes of helping people achieve their goals, right? Their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Some people like myself, we want to go to the moon. How can I trust you with all that detailed information about me now that you're only interacting with me digitally and online? So we're in this like third generation wave of digital experience platforms, which is all about customer marketing, building those lifelong customer relationships, that lifetime customer value, those relations built on trusted brand relationships. And there isn't any better example of someone pioneering this new digital first era than Sean here at Leidos, who, as you'll learn, has to deal with the most demanding customers who place trust and security above all else in terms of the multi-year relationship that he has with them as he helps them achieve their moonshots. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Sean to maybe share a little bit about your story and how you're helping customers in this new digital first era.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. And actually, there's just one quick session to kind of set a few quick slides to set Sean up for his talk track here. But in addition to what you said, but I think you highlighted what we're going to hone in on here in just a moment, which is why does the evolution of enterprise content management matter to customers? and then how is that impacting companies across all industries? Some of the lessons that you'll hear from Sean can be who at Leidos, which is an $18 billion government contractor and service provider, how they can be applied to all types of organizations. And Sean's going to tell the details of their story and their unique business and how they've evolved. But first, starting with why it matters to customers and then how it's going to impact all industries, I think will be critical for the vast majority of folks we have on the line, partners, customers across all different industries. And so when we at Acquia, we always focus on the customer first and build solutions out with that in mind. And so why does the evolution of enterprise content management matter to customers? Kevin talked about trust, and he alluded to the research and the amount of the buying process that's taking place online. But for many organizations, and we've heard this from Sean, who's a large B2B marketer as well as B2C marketers, is that they don't have a chance to talk to the customer until the very end of their journey, or maybe they only get a chance to talk to the customer at one inflection point in their buying journey. And so that's really challenging for organizations to make that shift, especially when buyers are engaged across a variety of devices. They're not just engaged on the web, on a desktop, but they're more and more engaged, like you heard in Dries' keynote, in using voice-based search and using emerging devices and apps and digital signage. And the irony of the complexity is what buyers are really still looking for, even though it's transitioned, the process has transitioned online, is simplicity. They want companies who understand them, who give them the content that they want, when they want it, in the evaluation process and in the life cycle of their journey if they're an existing customer. And so what does this mean for organizations like Leidos and many of you on the line today? It means the volume of content that you need to create has to increase. It's no longer enough to just have marketing-based content, an overview of your company, what makes you different, and a way to contact you to learn more. Most buyers are looking for content that is detailed, that comes from various parts of the organization, that has subject matter experts and a regional lens or a localized lens in order to efficiently go through that buyer's journey. And so companies like Leidos have had to figure out how to map different content to different stages in the journey. They've also needed to figure out how to include business users, marketers, regional teams in deploying content and creating experiences. And one of the key takeaways we heard from Sean is they just can't rely on IT, not because IT isn't a great partner to them, not because IT isn't competent in creating great digital experiences. It's just there's too much. The volume is not sustainable for it to be contained within one part of an organization. The digital work needs to be distributed throughout multiple teams across folks who have core expertise in digital platforms, as well as folks who are new to digital platforms as part of their job in this new landscape. So Kevin gave you a little bit of foreshadowing and some hints into the Leidos story. But at this juncture, I'm going to pass it over to Sean to talk about their experience when it comes to creating great digital experiences and where they're trying to go here in the future. So with that, Sean, over to you.
Sounds good, and I appreciate that, Ryan. If you can just flip to the next slide, and I appreciate someone giving me a time check in the chat. So we've got about 7 minutes left. So I speak fast in the best of times, so I will endeavor to to not speak too fast. So enterprise content management. So let me tell you, as Kevin alluded to, about a very literal moonshot at Leidos that we've been working on as recently as this morning, shall we say. So what you can see here is a render of what will hopefully be the next human landing system to take the first woman and the next man back to the moon. Pretty cool. So how do you build marketing content and campaigns around that? We decided that we had to do a quick website build to tell a deep space story. So if you go to the next slide, please, Ryan. For context, we have operated for a number of years on a centralized sort of web infrastructure. Yes, we have Site Factory, but we had very few sites operating there because we felt that the strength of the brand as an $11 billion contractor was first and foremost. But then you start to get into the scenarios where you're building very particular solutions for a mission that has national security, economic, and humanity-based impacts that deserve its own platform. So we add to that the fact that we're competing against two very big brands in Blue Origin and SpaceX to build this next human lander who are owned and operated by billionaires who have their own brands themselves. So in 3 weeks, we went from having no wireframes, no brand standards to speak of, because we were working with one of our new subsidiary companies that was an acquisition at the start of the year, to figure out how on earth we reposition ourselves as the right choice for NASA as part of the Artemis program to return humanity to the moon. So we decided that using no more than Site Studio and UI kit and absolutely no development time, and I can see Manning on the chat, that might be a lie. A little bit of development time. We built a fully functional website at dyneticsHLS.com to help promote the human landing solution. Now, when you've got good renders like this of something on the moon and astronauts and going to space, and you can capture the imagination of people, that feels like something that deserves its very own platform. So let's kind of take a step back from the cool renders and the cool space things and understand how we actually did that. So if you're one of the 5 people that attended my breakout session last year, you might have already seen this slide, but guessing not. This is our marketing technology infrastructure at Leidos. This used to have 50 logos on it. We pared this back massively because of the reasons Kevin spoke about: governance, control, security, trust. And you'll notice that, yes, there are a lot of Acquia products in there because we decided that is the best path for us as an enterprise customer. And a lot of our own government customers use the Acquia toolset, but also because it's open and we can connect it to our other best-in-class tools that we think are the right fit for our organization. This is kind of underpins a foundational thing for me with enterprise content management. You have to have a view of how content makes its way from ideation to execution, and does that quickly and with the right quality to make it effective in your customer engagement process going forward. So very quickly, you heard about going to the moon, and you've seen a diagram of our tech stack. Who on earth is Leidos? What do we do? So there's a lot of information on this slide. We are an $11 billion government contractor who does a lot of very critical work for defense, civilian, health, and intel agencies across the United States, primarily, in the world. And our mission statement is to make the world safer, healthier, and more efficient. But what does that actually mean that we do? Well, if we were all in Miami today, rather than sitting on our laptops, you would have flown to Miami using the air traffic control system that we build and maintain for the FAA. If you're interested in autonomy and artificial intelligence, particularly in the defense industry, we've built an autonomous boat that sails from San Diego to Hawaii and back, and that will underpin the future of the Navy in the future. And if you saw the picture of the black hole, the first ever picture captured of a black hole in the galaxy, April last year, a large portion of that was captured from down in the South Pole, where we help the National Science Foundation run the scientific discovery and the operation of that base station. That's all very cool work, but how do we communicate that? How do we tell that story effectively? And what are the challenges we have to answer to make sure we do that? So on the next slide, very quickly, we have a challenge as a contractor that everybody's competing in the same space. If you've ever been to DC and the kind of Washington metro area, there's a lot of big contractors with their offices not too far from DC or from Dulles Airport, all spending the same money and trying to get the same eyeballs. There's a reason that our brand as Leidos is ultraviolet and not blue or red. But our offerings are very broad. We have to deal with the restrictions that government puts upon us from a security perspective, from a technology perspective, but also maintain the ability to react quickly and to build sites quickly, like the human landing system website that I gave an example of earlier. But maintain that trust, maintain the trust that they can read what you produce, and they can consider themselves reading innovation and seeing stories that can help them plan the future of their operation or organization. So I think we just lost Ryan. So anyway, did he get kicked off? We will carry on. So from a customer experience perspective, our goal is never to generate leads for sales, really, almost never. You know, we are a B2G company. We don't necessarily operate in that lead process in the way that many B2B companies operate on. But what we do want to do is influence the breadth and depth of the conversation across our customers. And as Kevin alluded to, that is content driven. It's driven by their online behaviors. Our time frame for procurements is often measured in years, not months. So how do we build an experience that is engaging and useful and successful? And that's about content at the right velocity and the right volume and the right quality. And now you're missing the slide that has the cool picture of the astronaut on it. This is the whole part of the sale, Kevin, was the pictures. So how do we do that? We build a focus on speed of delivery, of automation, and acceptance that MVPs are okay. You know, that HLS website that I showed you is an MVP. There are more improvements to come, but being able to build and iterate on an infrastructure that can scale is really important for us as we move forward into the future and we continue to grow our business. The last thing I'll leave you with is our reuse. We have to reuse. Everyone has to do the same thing. We've implemented Acquia this year as our enterprise content management tool inside the organization that will get